Welcome to Baseball Performance 360, forging elite baseball performance through technology, sports science, and innovation. Today we're going to be discussing our pitching performance model. Our model as it applies to our baseball performance model runs down as so. Pitching biomechanics, pitching specific strength training, mental mound performance, equipment selection for pitchers, behavior management, which equates to mound presence, and then game IQ, which would be reading swings, pitch strategy, and setting batters up. Pitching biomechanics. Some of the items that we want to cover when we discuss how the body works through the act of pitching is number one, arm action. You know, a lot of attention has been brought to arm action in the last few years with the inverted W, inverted L, and how that affects pitching injuries. You know, the arm actions of Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood, Anthony Reyes, guys like that have kind of brought a lot of light to how the arm works and how that affects health of an arm. Glove side, direct relationship with arm action. Very important for a couple of reasons. Number one, you know, as the glove side goes, the arm is typically going to follow just because you're working with equal and opposite forces and actions. Additionally, the glove side, and this is very important for youngsters, the glove side is basically the only part of your body that you can actually see while you're going through delivery. Not quite as big of an issue for an older, more developed player who's got, you know, movement patterns and things ingrained in their body. But for a youngster who's still trying to learn and feel their body and understand what's going on in their delivery, the glove side can actually play a pretty big role. Use of the lower half where the power is generated. You know, obviously you're working from an athletic leg to an athletic leg, so you want to make sure and truly understand how to use the lower half in the pitching delivery. Posture, you know, posture is going to be a little bit different for different pitchers depending on arm slot. You know, posture can be, you know, completely upright, and it can also be, you know, essentially parallel to the ground for a pitcher who uses more of a submarine type of delivery. No matter what you're doing, no matter how you're throwing the baseball, which there are a lot of ways to effectively throw a baseball, you want to create a simple and repeatable delivery, especially when developing youth pitching athletes. Pitching biomechanics are going to be developed through repetition, just like any other skill, and deep practice. Pitching specific strength training. Essentially, we want to understand what the act of pitching involves and then train specifically for those types of movements. In general, we're going to be training, you know, good athletic movements. Just like any good athletic development program, we're going to start with an initial assessment, identify imbalance and weaknesses. A lot of times people will do a movement screen for these types of things, go through an injury history. Strength and power training for pitchers. You know, we understand that throwing a baseball is an explosive activity, and we need to be strong and powerful in order to optimize our pitching performance. Energy system development. Now, this is role dependent based on who you're working with, whether you've got a starting pitcher or a relief pitcher. Starting pitchers are going to be built, and we're going to train them to operate, you know, 1 out of every 5 days. You know, so less frequency, more quantity. Hopefully, if the pitcher's going deep into games. Relief pitchers, you know, sometimes relief pitchers are going to be taking the ball 3 out of 4 days, you know, but they're going to be only throwing, you know, 15 to 20 pitches. So we're going to train them, okay, to operate with higher frequency but less quantity. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of a difference there. You know, obviously stamina and endurance is going to be more important for starting pitchers. Those pitchers coming out of the bullpen, you know, less of an issue. So we're really just training explosiveness with them. Recovery, nutrition, regeneration. We've talked about this in the baseball performance model. You know, absolutely essential to baseball players. The sport is such a grinder sport that you really have to understand how to let your body recover, how to regenerate, and this really holds true to pitchers because Throwing a baseball overhand is a relatively violent activity, and when you get done, with a start or even, a long outing, you're going to have soreness. So you really want to understand what you need to do with your body to bounce back, whether that's soft tissue work, getting massage, foam rolling, those types of things, to getting enough rest. Some people like to ice after they throw, different things like that that help them kind of bounce back. Um, Balance and stability. This is, keeping the body under control throughout the delivery. Incredibly important in maintaining, again, we get back to that easy, simple, repeatable delivery. Balance and stability is a big part of that. Flexibility and mobility, important for creating fluid movements. Obviously the arm action, you want that to be nice and long and loose and really nice fluid movement. Flexibility and mobility also, applies to, hips, and torso. In recent years, probably in the last decade or so, it's really been found that the separation between your hips and your shoulders has a lot to do with the power and energy you generate. So, having good mobility in the spine and the lower back, and then also through the hips, can help you generate more force and power, which translates into better velocity. Speed, agility, and quickness. Now, these things don't directly apply to the act of pitching, but as far as fielding your position, helping yourself out defensively, this stuff absolutely helps out. You want to be able to get to as many baseballs as you can. You want to be able to help yourself out defensively, and training yourself, straight ahead speed, agility, and quickness are really a little bit more of what you're looking for as a pitcher. But you want to make sure that you're training yourself to be the best athlete possible, and that's going to help you as a pitcher. Equipment for pitchers. This is relatively minimal. We've got protective equipment or safety equipment up there. Obviously, we spoke about the protective chest pad for the person with the heart issue. Accessories like that, absolutely. Pitchers, I would highly recommend pitchers, wearing protective cup. Baseballs coming off the bat are coming back faster if they're squared up, come back faster than you threw them. So you've got very little time to react. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in that regard. Proper glove size. Too big can cause mechanical issues, especially for younger players who don't have the strength to hold their glove side arm up. At older ages, you want to have a glove that's big enough to help you field your position. One of my good friends is 6'7" right-handed relief pitcher who, I think it was a few years back, he switched to a larger glove because he didn't think he was getting to enough baseballs with, whatever glove size he had been using. So some of that might have been a function of, he probably should have focused on better athletic development, but it's a realistic issue. So you wanna make sure that you've got the right equipment out there, the right glove, and then also learning how to properly take care and use your equipment is always going to be important for baseball performance. Mental mound performance, huge issue for pitchers. Okay. Throwing a baseball, or I guess the act of pitching, can be one of the loneliest spots in baseball. The pitching mound for the visiting pitcher in Yankee Stadium is known as the loneliest spot in the world. You're out there yourself. You've got your teammates behind you, but really, it's your show. So you really want to make sure that you've got things straight upstairs. You got to be so mentally tough in order to maintain a positive attitude, self-motivation, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide as well. Anticipation and decision making. I think we mentioned in the baseball performance model that anticipation and decision making are things that researchers have found one of the main differences between expert athletes and novice athletes. It's not necessarily the physiology. It's not necessarily, hey, this guy's just a much better athlete than someone else. It gets into a lot of the mental processes, like your cognitive abilities in stressful situations, things like that. Concentration and focus, the ability to block out external factors. Depending on what level you're at, crowd noise can be an issue. Your competition can be an issue. Different things like that. That's important in game situations, but then also in practice situations, and learning how to you know, lock in and concentrate and get your focus, um, set even when you're not in that competitive state. Emotional management, another thing we'll talk about, but obviously this is huge for pitchers because there's so many things that are out of your control as a pitcher, so many factors. Now, number one, the strike zone. You have no control over the strike zone. Number two, the defense behind you. You have very little control over the defense behind you. So you want to make sure that you're able to suppress and control feelings of anger and frustration, or feelings that are going to negatively impact performance. Okay? Um, Positive mental imagery and positive self talk are huge keys. And these are skills. Okay? So skills are things that you can improve. So, the more repetition you get working with this type of stuff, the better you're going to be at it in game situations. Okay? And, obviously we just spoke about the loneliness of pitching and being out there by yourself. Pitchers are in their own head. They've got their own thought process going on. A lot of them talk to themselves. A lot of them are kind of visualizing themselves. You want to make sure that you're seeing yourself performing in a positive manner, and you want to talk to yourself in a positive manner. Very important things to optimizing performance. Mound presence. So this goes under the category of our behavior management, and this is essentially how you present yourself and kind of that just aura. This is something that's another thing that's difficult to quantify. It's difficult to study, but you can see it. Okay, you can see when someone has presence just by the way they carry themselves, by the way they stand. Their posture and their body language can tell you a lot about their confidence. So under mound presence, we've got effective interpersonal interaction. Now, here's an example. When you're talking with your teammates and you're the pitcher, you've got a lot of control over kind of the mood and the attitude of the team. If you present yourself as confident, calm, under control, that in turn calms down your team. Okay, that helps them relax and gives them confidence. So that's a big part of it. When we discussed effective interpersonal interaction in baseball, in the baseball performance model, we talked about treating your teammates with respect, treating the game with respect, your opponents, all that. This is especially important for pitchers. The development of positive habits and routines, what you do between starts, what you do between games, what you do between innings, what you do to prepare yourself for every situation that you're going to handle is incredibly important to optimizing your performance. Goal setting. Okay, goal setting could have gone on the last slide too, but essentially, goal setting has to do with motivating you to do that extra work in between starts, to do that extra work during the off season. And the goal setting system that we use, nothing super revolutionary here, but a SMART goal setting worksheet, which SMART is an acronym which stands for specific, measurable, attainable. Uh, what is the R? The T is time oriented, and the R is realistic. Okay, so basically, you want your goals to be specific. You want to be able to measure them. You want them to be attainable. If you set goals that are just so outlandish, it's tough to really follow a curriculum to achieve them if you don't really think you're going to get there. Realistic, that kind of goes with attainable or achievable, and then time based. You want to have a cap. You want to get this done by a certain point. You don't want to leave your goals open ended so that you just kind of flounder around. You want to make sure that you're trying to get to a certain point by a certain time. A growth mindset. Now, this is great for all athletes, all people in general, but especially for pitchers because you deal with so many different difficult situations. You want to feel like you're going to take something good from every situation, even if it was a horrendous situation. I think everyone's had a blow up inning or a blow up start where things were just awful. Just was nothing good that came of it. But you have to understand and maintain that perspective that, hey, even though that was an absolute nightmare, just an absolute train wreck, I still got better from it because I went through the experience of going through, just a terrible outing or whatever. You learn how to deal with certain things like that, especially if you maintain a good growth mindset.